What do you think are some of the most effective ways to tell if somebody's lying to you?
So I'll give you two. We'll start with the first one. I just call it paying attention to the first 3 to 5 seconds. And what does that mean? As human beings, we're not great liars. We're not born to lie. So if I ask somebody, well, first of all, you baseline and meaning if I'm hiring somebody for my company, they come into my office, we sit down, I'm like, oh, hey, Jack, where are you from? How's the weather today? What sports do you like, right? Baseline them, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever. Then out of left field, you say, Jack, tell me the last time you stole something. Not a question they expect. Most people give a normal, honest reaction that a human being is going to give, a non-liar. They're going to say, oh, well, in sixth grade, I stole candy from the supermarket. Or in high school, I used to steal money out of my parents' wallet, right? Normal reactions. And they look normal in the face. They don't look nervous. So what am I looking for? I'm looking for somebody who stutters because they're trying to buy time for their brain to come up with a lie. And I'm looking for someone who gets a deer in the headlight look like, oh, crap, I'm nervous. He just asked me that. Where an innocent person wouldn't be nervous. They'd say that, hey, I stole Snickers candy bars from the supermarket in eighth grade or whatever. So one time I was interviewing somebody, a woman. I said, tell me the last time you stole something. And she got the deer in the headlights look in her face. She was nervous. She was like, well, and I was like, hey, listen, we've all stole stuff. We've all made mistakes. And she said, for my previous employer, I was a bookkeeper. I stole a ton of bookkeeping supplies because I wanted to set up a competing bookkeeping business. But I decided I didn't want to do that. Now I need a job. Now, obviously, I did not hire that woman, but pay attention to the first 3 to 5 seconds. Do they have a nervous look on their face? Are they stuttering? Are they hemming and hawing? Or do they give an immediate, normal answer like an honest person would do? So that is number one.
So is the eye contact thing, is that a myth? Like if somebody looks to the right or something? Or...
So it depends if they're left-handed or right-handed, and it's not always easy to see. So I teach a lie detection course, and I do not teach that, because it doesn't work all the time. The things I teach are much more obvious. Here's another obvious one, is I call it the freeze. If somebody does something dishonest, they kind of want to freeze and not draw attention to themselves because they think like, hey, if I don't move, then Jason's never going to know it's me. So I'll give you an example. This is literally what I tell when I teach a seminar is, hey, if I went to the bathroom, I come back and let's say my wallet was on a table, I come back, it's missing, right? And I'm sitting there and I'm angry and I'm like, hey, you guys, I'm trying to teach this course. My wallet's missing. I'm looking around for the person who freezes most because everybody else is going to be like, oh, Jason, I didn't take your wallet, or hey, Jason, we'll help you look for it, or hey, Jason, we didn't see what happens. But I'm looking for the person who's trying to retract on their tortoise shell and be like, if I don't move, Jason will never know it's me. I will not draw any attention to myself. So here's the $1 million example. I'm on an airplane once. Somebody passes gas is the best way I can say it. Smells horrific. I'm looking around this airplane like, holy smokes, there is a dead body in this plane. I mean, it smelled horrible. I'm looking all around. And as I'm doing this, I'm noticing everybody else in my vicinity is doing the same thing. They're like, oh my gosh, where the smell, where's it coming from? Which is normal human behavior. However, everybody around my vicinity is doing that except one guy. To my left, about 2 seats up, there's this guy who's just sitting there like this, not moving whatsoever. He's not exhibiting that normal human behavior. Most likely, he's the guy that passed the gas because he's the one who's freezing.
Got it. But isn't the opposite also true, where if somebody tries to come up with some crazy story, gets super defensive, they tend to not be telling the truth as well?
Yes. Yeah, I got a story for that one. So, good friend of mine, this was years ago, maybe 6 years ago now, finds a cell phone in her husband's car, like their third vehicle or whatever. And she picks it up. There's one number in there. She calls the number. A woman hangs up, right? Immediately. And so she calls me and she tells me this story. And I'm like, hey, Sally, it doesn't really look, too good. It looks like he's having an affair. She's like, no, he's not having an affair. He would never do that. We have a great marriage. Everything's wonderful. I said, okay, do this. As soon as he gets home from work, tell him the exact same story you told me, which is true. You found this phone accidentally. A woman answered and hung up. Tell me what he says. Call me tomorrow. So she called me the next day. And she's like, oh my gosh, Jason, I've never seen him so angry in his life. He was screaming and yelling and cussing, and he never cusses. Like, he was so mad that I dare even, disrespect our marriage by saying he was having an affair. I've never seen him so angry in his life. So I know he's not cheating on me. I said, hey, Sally, he's cheating on you. She was like, what do you mean? Jason, didn't you hear what I just said? I've never seen him so angry in his life. I've never seen him cussing and screaming. A guilty person is like a cat backed in the corner, They will try and scream and yell and go psycho on you. So you're like, I'm never going to ask again. I'm so sorry. But I'm married. Doug, are you married? You're not married, are you?
I'm engaged, not married.
Congratulations. Good
Thank you,
deal.
thank you.
That's awesome. Well, if your fiance or my wife calls me right now on my flip phone and says, hey, Jason, are you cheating on me? First thing I'm going to do is make a joke, which she's not going to find funny. But that's all I'm going to do. I'm not going to scream and yell. I'm not going to cuss. I'm not going to lose my mind because I'm not cheating on my wife. I have no guilt associated with it. So the fact that my friend's husband was going psycho, I knew he was guilty. Long story short is several months later, she did find out he was indeed cheating on her. Surprise. So yes, you're right. If somebody goes absolutely psycho, that's not normal human behavior. Where an innocent person will be like, why the heck are you asking me if I'm cheating on you? What's going on? Because they have no guilt.
And what's the difference between lying and manipulation? Because I think sometimes those two terms get interchanged. Like, how do you know? Like, what's the difference between manipulation and lying?
Well, I mean, lying is outright lying. You're being dishonest. Where manipulation, you're trying to manipulate someone to get what you want them to do. So it goes back to the art of elicitation. If I'm trying to extract information from somebody, I want to find out their hot button. I want to find out, again, do they have a cocaine habit? Do they hate their wife and have a mistress? Do they have a child who, going back to the guy who got books and ended up spying for the agency, do they have a child that has books? Do they have a child with a health problem and really needs the best medical care where you can say, hey, if you spy for the United States, we can most likely bring you over to the US and get your child in the best hospital in America to cure him of this ailment, right? So that is being, I think that's being more manipulative because you're trying to find out what their vulnerabilities are, use them to have them spy for the United States or get what you want in whatever fashion.
And how can somebody, like the average person, maybe doesn't have the skills that you've developed throughout your career and what you do now to like tell if somebody's trying to manipulate them? Like, what are some of the signs that somebody could pick up on?
Well, I mean, it's a good question. The sixth sense. You can tell when something doesn't add up. I mean, I've been through it enough that I can tell pretty quickly something doesn't. I can see their body language. I can see they're not genuine. A lot of times what I do is just immediately ask for proof. Meaning, again, let's say somebody comes and says, hey, I've got the hottest stock tip in America and I made $50 billion last time. Invest in my cryptocurrency or stock, right? Show me your bank account. Show me your 50 million bucks. Like that kind of stuff. So I think people are afraid to offend, and criminals use this all the time because they adapt to society and they don't want to offend anybody. But if somebody comes up to you and makes some promises or say they can do X and Y, say, show me proof. You're the world's best home builder. Show me the 17 custom homes you made and the people, show me where you've made them and happy customers. So I think a lot of people don't do that and are afraid to do that. But I have no problem doing that kind of stuff. And you get rid of these manipulators very easily, such as, again, whatever it might be, promising you the next stock tip, crypto, real estate deal of a lifetime. Say, okay, show me what you've done before, and that'll get them to go away.
There's some people that are incredibly gifted at being deceitful and manipulative. How is there any specific like tips you would provide somebody you were coaching on how to detect like even the best skilled person at manipulating people?
Yeah, so the guys that are really good are sociopaths
Yeah.
because they are, I'm serious, I'm being dead serious. They're soulless. They could go stab somebody right in front of you and me, have blood all over their hands and pass a polygraph and be like, no, I didn't stab anybody. What are you talking about? So you've got to be careful with those. And honestly, that's when it comes to background checks, asking questions, and proof. Because, and I do this all the time. I do work with a lot of high net worth individuals, and they come to me and they say, hey, Jason, XYZ is going on. I need you to background check this person. And we do a very deep dive. And a lot of times, the fact that we say we're going to do it just scares them away. So, like, one of the things we do is CEOs or guys who own holding companies, right? They own a lot of holding companies. They're trying to hire a CEO for one of their companies, and we vet their CEOs. So you can say right off the bat, like, hey, John, we're going to do a background check on you. I'm former CIA. We do a very thorough background check. Is there anything you want to tell me now? Any reason we shouldn't do it? And, some guys will be like, you know what? I don't think I'm the right candidate for this job. Let me go. Seriously, you'll scare away people, right? So tell them the things you are going to do and say, hey, I have a lot of clients. And I just say, tell them you have somebody who's former CIA who works for you. And here's what they're going to do. And that will scare a lot of people off. So just simple things like that.
And then can the average person do like a thorough background check, or given like what you used to do you have access to
Yeah, I
different?
mean, you got to be licensed to and have access to it. So somebody hires me or hires a private investigator or somebody like that who can do the very thorough background checks.
Like, what other things are people scared that you would find other than like criminal stuff?
Let's see. I'm trying to think. We had a guy one time who was a sex offender. So, he obviously was scared they're going to find that. You can find out how much money, you can find their financials. So, I've had people who say, hey, this guy says he's worth $80 million. He wants to do a deal with me. Can you see if he's really worth $80 million? And we go check in and say, yes, he's legit. He has these type of assets and funds. So, you can find out all kinds of stuff when you know how to dig.
Right. And I think that you kind of touched on this. People are afraid to confront people or to stand up for themselves, like in conversation, when they know somebody is lying to them or deceiving them or whatever. And I think two things happen. I think the first thing is people get incredibly emotional, reactive, start yelling and screaming, and then that conversation just doesn't go anywhere. And the other side is they don't say anything, and then they just disrespect themselves, and they end up building resentment, or they end up like not doing the right thing in a situation that they should have done. How can people like stand up for themselves when somebody is lying to them, and like move the conversation towards some sort of hopefully like agreement or something that doesn't necessarily like erupt within minutes?
So here's what I tell people when I do this. Every human being on earth has an ego. I have an ego. You have an ego. We all have egos, right? But I tell them, swallow your pride, swallow your ego. I have nothing left to prove to anybody these days. I have been incredibly blessed to do a lot. I've proved myself to the people who know me. So if some guy, let's say I'm driving, some guy flips me the bird, thinks I've cut him off, yelling and screaming at me. Again, I'm a human, so I don't appreciate that. And I'd love to start yelling at him too, but I don't do anything. I'll smile and wave because I'm very well trained. I carry concealed every single day. Why do I want to get in a fight with somebody, some knucklehead, whatever? So I'm swallowing my pride, even though, again, I'm very well trained and I'm pretty sure, I'm confident that if a battle ensued, I would be the winner of it. But again, I want to avoid that at all costs because it's unnecessary. So I tell the people, if you see somebody lying or see someone doing whatever, you can realize it and you can just say, no, thank you. I'm not interested in that. Or that, yeah, that's great, but that doesn't seem a good fit for me. So I go back to killing people with kindness. I mean, if somebody tries with me, I'll just say, oh, that's fascinating. That, I'll play dumb because again, I don't have an ego. I don't have anything to prove anybody. And I'll say, oh, no, thank you. And then I'll just walk away or I'll just forget about it or do something like that. So that's what I think we need to do. That would solve a lot of problems because I think people feel like, no, I need to point it out that he's lying. I need to point out that I'm the bigger man and I'm smarter or I'm this or that or I'm whatever. And I'm like, no, I don't have anything to prove it. This guy wants to think he's smarter than me or, if he thinks I'm the world's biggest idiot, it doesn't matter to me.
What about if it's somebody where they're like, it's a family member or a friend that they have to interact with on a regular basis? Like, don't you think not, pointing out them not telling the truth is going to ultimately like destroy the relationship?
So that is a good point. Yeah, that is a good point you made. If we're talking about a family member, or if we're talking about somebody that you have to see daily, well, then yes, confront them. Now, I would not lie. I wouldn't get in an argument or whatever. I just call them out and stay silent. I'll say like, hey, Bill, you said this, but you just proved to me that's not true. Like, what's going on? And then I'm silent again, and let them, when you're kind of like, let them explain to you, because I think the problem is people get so emotional, and then they just keep going on and on. It's like, hey, Bill, I'm just making this up, obviously. Hey, Bill, you said you didn't take my wallet, but I found my wallet in your dresser drawer. How did that happen? And then see what happens and you can take it from there kind of thing. So nothing comes out of the confrontation because it just ends up in a shouting match and you gather a lot more information. You're able to elicit a lot more if you, again, remain calm, play stupid, and just ask questions.
And then like giving that same example, what if like like you say you find your friend Bill who you think stole your wallet, you find it in his drawer. He's like, no, I didn't do that. Like you're lying. Like somebody must have put it there. Like, what do you say to him then?
So I dig deeper. Again, I'm like, okay, so nobody, like, who do you think could have done it? Like, if you didn't take it, this really worries me that we got a thief in the house. So do you think, have you had any friends over? I mean, I keep pushing it and pushing it until they get very uncomfortable and maybe they admit it, maybe they don't, but I don't let it go. So I say stuff like, well, who else was in your room? Let's go look at the security cameras. Let's go check out and see who it could have been. And now it's like, hey, you and I are the Hardy Boys together. We're going to solve this crime. So most people think, he's just going to let it go, whatever. No, I'm keeping going down the rabbit hole to make you feel more uncomfortable, to hopefully have you admit it or at least figure out more of what really happened.